All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everyone jumping in. This is a talk specifically designed around developing workplace culture, right? Whether that's for your customers, whether that's for your employees, whether that's for your smaller individual dev teams, all these different steps can kind of help. So we're going to go ahead and get this kicked off, but I want this to be somewhat interactive. So if you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat. If you want to participate, want to share audio, anything of that nature, Hopin has a little option for doing that. You can just click it and let me know, and we should be good to go. So cool. And I just got the green light from David. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get this started. So first and foremost, I'll tell you just a little bit about myself, as long as my slides work. All right, here we go. So here's just a little bit about me. My name is Jake Overall. I'm the founder and CEO of CodeWorks. We are a local, what's called a developer boot camp. And a developer boot camp is all about retraining or training individuals in an industry-specific skill that will hopefully make them employable. And so what we do here at CodeWorks is specifically take individuals who are wanting to transition from one career to another. A lot of times they have college degrees and are not really super satisfied with what they're doing, and we train them specifically to become software developers. So a little bit of this talk is kind of geared towards that concept of, the trick is out, right? Like as software developers, we've been working in a remote world for a very, very long time now. And it's not an uncommon thing for software developers to have been remote, anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week. And so kind of what is that culture and how do we do that, right? And so I have a little bit of experience there. I did start CodeWorks over 5 years ago. We lived through this pandemic. And so during the midst of the pandemic last year, we were kind of in the middle of, having not only students that had to go remote, but we also had our employees and our different dev teams and things of that nature, which were also remote as well. So managing all of those expectations and kind of working through those many different things, it's hard, right? And the first thing that I want to call out specifically is that developing a good company culture is hard. And any of you who have been in any type of leadership position already know this, right? And it's something that requires constant energy being put in order to actually stay alive, okay? And so as we can talk about some of these remote tips, we'll also be talking about, just some of the things that we do here specifically at CodeWorks and things that I personally feel like we could also probably do better on. So a little bit about me, though, and again, I have my so very important skill list here, and hopefully we have a little bit of semblance of knowledge of what's going on here. Know that the colors are very important as well, with the nunchuck skills and bow staff skills, yeah. So anyways, that's a little bit about me. I am a Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate, award-winning VR developer. I've spent quite a bit of time kickstarting a lot of different projects, getting them off the ground. And I absolutely love doing it. So let's go ahead and talk about work. Work is one of those things that none of us will ever escape. We're all doing it, right? Every single day we get up, we have to go to work, we have to provide for ourselves, we provide for our families, we provide, the concept of working is we're exchanging time for money so that we can go and do the things that we want to do, right? And there's probably people out there, there's probably people in attendance today who have what I call the Sunday blues every single week, where Monday, is that I have to get up, I have to go to work, I can't believe the weekend's already over, and it's pretty terrible, right? And so one of the things that I specifically talk about, especially as we're retraining individuals for software development, is you should enjoy what you're doing. because you're going to be doing it a lot. It requires a lot of what we call time, energy, and effort. And so you might as well find something that you actually enjoy. And so we'll talk about kind of some tips and tricks for making the workplace a little bit more enjoyable from kind of a leadership standpoint, and then also from an individual standpoint. And so that's kind of the goal of this presentation, is to, if you have those employees that are feeling those Sunday blues, if you yourself are feeling those Sunday blues, hopefully there's a way around these types of problems. And a lot of it can just come down to the work culture. And this is something that I very firmly believe in, because I absolutely love software development. I love working in technology. I love working with computers, but the wrong company can absolutely tank that for you. The wrong type of culture can absolutely destroy all of your enthusiasm for a career field, and maybe even perhaps make you believe that you don't enjoy a career field when you really truthfully do, but just the company culture is so bad, right? And so we'll kind of talk about those types of issues. We'll kind of talk about moving past those types of things. And again, I want this to be a very interactive thing. So before I make this any further, I need everyone, if you're out there, right, I want everyone to actually try out this website. And this is something that I kind of want to show off for all day long. So if you go to bingo.codeworksacademy.com, this is a little bingo game I put together specifically for this remote conference. And I'm actually going to share this real quick. So let's see. Let me press escape over here and, oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay, here we go. All right, we've actually got some people in here too. So here's bingo for this conference. The kind of goal here is, as you are listening to these presentations, as you're participating hopefully in these presentations, listen for these kind of key phrases and just see how many of you can actually score a bingo before the end of the day. I try to put some funny things in here, some of the funny things that we of course are hearing frequently throughout many of these presentations. Just having worked remotely now for quite a while, I hear a lot of those things, and so I'm probably going to be very guilty of saying some of this. If you end up scoring a bingo during my presentation, then that's absolutely wonderful, and that'll be totally fine. And so I'm hoping I don't end up with this one worked last night. We'll see though. Whenever we have live demos, presentations, it can kind of be rough. One thing I will specifically call out is you can click on these little icons. It'll show us everyone who's in attendance. All of your names are randomly generated, of course, as well as your pictures. So hopefully you enjoy your cat name for today's conference. So anyways, if you get a bingo, we should all find out. So we'll kind of see how this goes. All right. So let's go ahead and jump a little bit back here into this presentation. Now, I'm showing a graph currently on the screen. And by a show of hands, I don't know if Hopin does a very good job of this. It's one thing I kind of like about Zoom is you can say, hey, show a hand or give me a thumbs up or something of that nature, or throw it in the chat. Has anyone ever seen this graph before or heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? And I'll give a few seconds to see if anything in the chat pops up. All right, yes, no, a couple different things. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is specifically it's this weird phenomenon. Like, we as humans sometimes believe, yes, that, the less you know, the more confident you are in a particular thing, right? And so this is something that I find to be absolutely very, very, very true, is there are a lot of people out there right now who don't have years experience working in a remote industry telling you, oh, working remote's easy. Working remote's great. Work from home, everybody's loving it. It's going to be wonderful. I know everything at 18 graph. Absolutely, yes, it's very true. By 20, you're a little late bloomer there, David. So yeah, the less you have experience, the more you think you know about things, right? Like I like to draw this correlation between myself and outer space. I absolutely love outer space. It's awesome. I know the 9 planets, or 8. I know about the moon. I know some astrological distances, and so I know a lot about space. When in reality, I don't actually know anything about space, right? But the Dunning-Kruger effect is one of those things, and I specifically bring this up because what we're talking about, building culture, okay, or working remotely, requires what we call T here at CodeWorks, time, energy, and effort, okay? And the weird thing or the difficult thing about the Dunning-Kruger effect is as you're kind of going through this learning process, as you're working to gain more knowledge in a particular field, you enter what's called the trough of disillusionment, right? And the trough of disillusionment is kind of what you can see here where, things are like, oh, okay, I'm starting to feel really not confident. I've hit this realization that I don't know anything. And I am never going to make it in this industry, right? I'm never going to make it. I don't know how I'm ever going to establish a good culture with my team. I don't know how I'm going to build that rapport. It's just not going to work, right? Or a lot of the times with some of these tips that we'll be going through is, okay, well, yeah, maybe that works great for you, CodeWorks, but that would never work here. That would never fly. And to that I say, no, that's not true. The world is changing. Everything is changing, right? Social norms have changed. Everything can be reinvented. Everything can be renewed. And so as you're going through this, trough of disillusionment, as you're trying to build this culture, you're going to have these. And if you start feeling overwhelmed, or if you start feeling like you're never going to make it, know that it's probably because you're actually starting to do a good job. You're actually starting to learn, and you're actually starting to apply some of these things, right? I talk about consciously, so we have unconsciously incompetence, and we have consciously competence. And so that scale kind of is when you don't know what you don't know, you're blissfully ignorant, right? And then as you start to learn more, you become, conscious of your incompetence, and you have to continue to work and push while you're consciously incompetent, right? In order to gain what we call consciously competence, right? And so it sounds really mean to tell people that they're incompetent, but incompetence is really just a word that says, hey, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm working towards it, right? And so that's part of this trough of disillusionment is, going through it and knowing that, yes, I'm going to have to dedicate time, energy, and effort in order to actually make this thing change. So we'll kind of talk about those, okay? So let's see, is my mouse still where it's supposed to be? All right, so here's my tip number 1, okay? Tip number 1 is we're human, right? This should go without saying, but sometimes it doesn't, right? People are human. We all kind of have this shared human experience, right? For the most part, and again, if we could see hands in this conference today, we would probably say, well, how many of you go to work because you need to make money, right? How many of you really enjoy what you're doing, okay? How many of you want to do a good job, right? And we get hand raising, right? Generally, most people have a lot of shared aspirations. We have a lot of shared feelings and emotions and things of that nature, right? Like for the most part, people are good, right? And that's one of the things that I think is most important to just kind of remember, especially as you start to work from home. And I think this is, and I will specifically call out, there have been amazing stories of companies and teams out there that have just done wonderful things with having to have so many people switch to a remote learning environment or remote working environment, where we know that there's now kids at home, there's kids that are having to do school, so we've got parents that are being teachers and employees at the same time. And it can be really tough, right? It can be incredibly difficult to manage so many different things. And so, again, I will say, for the most part, from what I've seen, a lot of people have been very understanding of this. But as we become adjusted to this new normalcy of life, which is remote working, or having these meetings remote, or conferences remote, or things of that nature, there's some things that we can remember or keep in mind in order to make sure that we're actually remembering that, hey, I'm not just talking to a computer screen, I'm talking to people, right? And because that's something that really truthfully, the anonymity, or however you say that word, of the internet allows for essentially a lack of human touch, right? Or a lack of human interaction. A lot of times we can kind of get stuck in this, I'm just here typing on this screen, I'm just replying to this chat. And yes, subconsciously we can think about, yeah, there's a person behind that. But a lot of the times, we get into this mindset of, especially if you live at home, work at home, never see anybody, you can kind of start to fall into this, lack of awareness that people have bad days, right? People have other things going on in their lives. And so when we have a lot of lack of human interaction, we can definitely be kind of starting to fall into this lack of empathy, right? And empathy is one of those things that I think is absolutely crucial for every single company, every single team, every single customer experience, and for you enjoying your job, right? There's got to be people out there that care, okay? And again, I have some bullet points here. As an employee, you want to know that what you do on a daily basis actually matters, right? I want to know that I'm actually making something better for the customer, or better for my team, or my existence here at this company is worth something, right? People need that validation. And that's only human. And it's very, very common. And so I talk about customers, customers can be cruel. Here's one of the things that happens, especially kind of working in this remote world where, we have the anonymous, there's that word again, I can't say it, I'm just gonna avoid it. Being that anonymous face, right? A lot, and this is something that happens on the phone as well. And people that have worked fielding, IT or tech support or things of that nature, it's not uncommon to get screamed at on the phone, right? And that is a lot of times because, well, someone's unhappy about something and they're going to just lay into you, right? And so, yeah, absolutely. Christian's talking about virtual work parties. That's actually, I think, the very next tip is, how do we take care of those types of issues that are going to come up? One thing that I'll specifically call out is, if you have a really good employee, if you have a really good team member, if you have a really good person who is usually on the other side, and their performance starts declining, or they're just kind of having a bad day, something that we miss in a lot of times in a remote environment is the ability to just see someone's facial expressions, to see someone's body. There's nonverbal cues that a lot of times that we can tie into when everyone's showing up to the office on a daily basis that we just don't have in a remote world. And so we have to schedule specific time for things like mental, physical health check-ins, right? If you're a manager, or if you're a team leader, if you're something of that nature, you might need to just have quick one-on-ones with everyone on your team. Ask them about their life. Take that concept of the water cooler speech, and actually talk to your teammates and kind of get an idea of what's going on in their lives, right? That's that human interaction that we all need. And this is something that, regardless of whether you're remote, this tip works for anyone everywhere, for any type of company, whether you're remote or not. So we'll talk about this next one, which Christian was jumping into, is participation, right? How? And so here's a question. How many of you have tried to implement things like Zoom time games, right? Someone right now, like, go find a paperclip, right? And come back and show it to everyone on the team. Or how many of you have done those meetings where you say, hey, if you can, go ahead and turn on your camera. We'd like to see you today. And we get absolutely no participation, right? I think that is something that can happen, right? And let's see, Christian again. Yeah, absolutely. Randomly complimenting someone on, anything, truthfully. People love to be complimented, right? People love to know that, what they do on a daily basis matters, right? I know specifically that my wife, who works as a nurse and is now working remotely as well, there's a couple of days a week where she specifically gets, dressed nice and continues to do her hair and things of that nature. And then there's other days where she just runs out of time and doesn't bother to comb her hair, brush it, pull it back into a ponytail or something of that nature, right? And just the little times that, her teammates have said, hey, your hair looks nice today, just brightens her day. And she actually tells me about it, right? When I get home from work. And so there's absolutely little tiny things that you can do that will help, okay? I specifically call out here in red, do not have scheduled mandatory video messaging, especially if it's like, hey, we're jumping into a meeting, mandatory video is on, you've got 5 minutes, right? I think that's one of the worst things that you can do for company morale, right? And one of the things to specifically call out, and I'm not sure you guys have probably seen this or heard this, but imagine showing up to the office workplace every single day and having an assistant who follows you around and holds a mirror in front of your face all day long, right? How distracted can you be if you're constantly looking at yourself in the mirror, right? Again, I'll go back to this one. We're only human. A lot of people have difficulties or insecurities that come from their self-image, right? And this is, again, a human fact. It's a human nature thing. Prettiest people in the world will still think they're ugly a lot of times. And that a lot of times just truthfully comes down to your own insecurities. And so having to have a video on a day that you're not feeling like yourself, or a day where you're not feeling great, can be an absolute just killer to someone's mood and attitude, participation, and all of those different things, right? But having a weekly scheduled, hey, we know that we're going to have videos on what I like to call Fantastic Fridays, or Fantastic Mondays, or some sort of alliteration, right? A lot of times will help, but have a regular scheduled once a week meeting minimum that is videos on, that everyone knows that it's going to be videos. And a lot of times your employees or your team members, or again, customers, clients, right? Like we have, they'll know, okay, I need to make sure that I'm getting dressed. I need to make sure that, I look good today and I feel good about myself. And a lot of that, truthfully, is something that is very, very important. Yeah, regularly talking through tasks. I will specifically call this out. A lot of the times, you will get better participation on a non-video, like a walking meeting, right? If you can afford to have a meeting where you say, hey, everyone go for a walk, just grab your phone, we'll do a group chat, and this will be a quick, 5-10 minute walk. Now, Right now, with all the snow out, that's not great. People probably don't want to walk in the snow. But as we get closer into spring and summer, those are things that are absolutely wonderful to do, and you'll get a lot more participation out of a audio-only chat anyways. And so again, there's some other things. I also want to call out, I see this all the time on LinkedIn. And I don't know if you guys are big on LinkedIn or not, but I see a lot of times on LinkedIn where it's things like, oh, just put in a 16-hour workday, and I started work at 7 a.m. this morning, and it's 10 p.m. and I'm still working. And we get like, hey, cheers, and we get thumbs up, and we get likes, and we get all these different things. And I will say that is very counterproductive, truthfully. Don't reward those long hours. Now, I know that there are some days where we have incredibly long days, right? We have incredibly long hours, world's on fire and things got to get done. I say if we have those days, then you need to make sure that you're rewarding those extra hours that are put in by giving time off, right? By specifically calling out, hey, we appreciate you stepping up now, but in the future, let's try to avoid having to work these long hours. What can we change? What can we do different, right? Let's not glorify the fact that we're putting in 16-hour workdays. It's not healthy for anyone, regardless. And so, again, it's a shift in concept, and especially in the software developer world, we have hackathons. We have these big events all the time, right? Like we have 24-hour events that we do specifically in the world of software development, and they're fun events. And then we have scheduled break time. We have scheduled off time that we know, okay, this was something that we've done for fun, not necessarily because we're working, we're pushing a deadline, we're doing all these other different things, right? Those types of long hour days are great, but regular long hour days, especially if it's weekly or even monthly, I think there's actually an underlying problem that needs to be resolved, or you're going to run into things like burnout. Okay. I'll also call out the 5:30 happy hour. Has anyone been doing those? Let's all turn on cameras and let's all have happy hour together. I think those are great. I just say every now and again, it's probably okay. Let's break at 3 today and let's actually have happy hour from 3 to 5, right? Don't always schedule your happy hours for after business hours. Because again, now you're just asking your employees to participate in something that they may or may not actually have time to do. And so setting aside that scheduled time, I think is really important. I read as I was preparing this report, I was curious, on average, how many hours a day do people actually spend working when they're in an office, right? And there's been a lot of studies and there's been a lot of, things that have been kind of projected and whatnot to figure this out. And I was actually kind of shocked to find out that most people actually only spend about 3 hours of an 8-hour workday actually working. The rest of the time is spent talking with each other, checking emails, checking Facebook, social media, things of that nature. Having mental breakaway time is crucially important, right? And that's something that really truthfully, we do at the office all day long, but at home, we feel a lot more guilty for it. And so that's something that we'll talk about here on this next slide is automation and the human touch, right? There are a lot of tools out there as we're starting to transition into this remote working, and I've seen a lot of different companies actually trying things. And I think it's good to try, but there's a couple of little things that I think can be absolutely tanking to your morale. And this is something that I've had to also become aware of as a software developer is there are sometimes menial tasks that people do on a daily basis, okay, that are easy, that they're repetitive, that They don't require a lot of thought in order to perform, but they're absolutely crucial for that person to be doing. Okay, and that's because it's during that time that they're actually thinking about something else. It's during that time that they are taking care of a million other things. I've seen companies that have put on, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with this concept or not, but I think it's terrible software. But there's software that you can put essentially on a computer that'll track like mouse movements and clicks and keystrokes and things of that nature. And basically it gives your manager a report of how active your mouse was, or how many clicks did you do in this, hour or minute, or things of that nature. And, for the most part, I haven't seen too many companies that are huge sticklers on this, but I've seen that if your mouse goes inactive for like 5 minutes, you automatically get clocked out of work. And to that I say, why, right? If you're worried about people not working at home, then you've already made the wrong choice of who you've hired. And so I think that is very important to also remember and kind of think about and consider is you made the decision, or someone at the company, right? And a lot of times you may not be the hiring manager, but you have your teammates. You work with these people on a daily basis. And if you can't trust them to actually get their job done, then there's a bigger issue at play. I don't think like tools like the one I was just talking about are even remotely necessary. Again, we go back to our very first slide here, where I say we're human. The majority of us want to be doing a good job, right? We want to try to do what is right. And if we're not performing to expectations, a lot of times it's just communication. It's clarification. It's because I don't understand something. And maybe one of my insecurities is the thing that's preventing me from actually going to my manager or to my team lead or to whoever to explain that, hey, I don't actually fully understand what I'm doing here. Mouse movement is the definition of work. Yeah, I have that same kind of tendency to shake my mouse while I'm thinking. And so, yeah, I think that's very important, that we don't need to use those types of tools. Okay. Now, the tools that do exist, there's a lot of them, and there's different personalized touches to all of these different things. James is calling out specifically Kanban, right? I love Kanban boards. I use them all the time. And so I will say that for me, at least, I personally hate talking on a cell phone. I hate picking up the phone. There's just something about like my anxiety level goes through the roof when my phone rings. And so for me as an individual, a phone call can be absolutely terrifying. I much prefer a text, right? So if we have things that we need to communicate with each other like we always do, I say choose a couple of different platforms, right? Know kind of what your individual, and truthfully, if you don't know what your employees prefer, ask them. Just simply ask them. I have another employee who, especially during this pandemic, where we were 100% remote, I didn't realize, and I kind of fell into this whole like, hey, I'm loving this. I'm used to being remote. This is totally fine for me. But I had a couple of team members who were a lot more social than I am. And they were struggling. They felt like they were on an island completely alone. Even though we were having regular Zoom meetings, we were having, chatting in Slack. We were talking to each other pretty much all day long. Okay, but we were never actually just talking. And so for that individual, they would have loved to have had a phone call. They would have loved to said, hey, let's go on a walking meeting. And it wasn't until this individual, Mark, actually specifically, called me out. He's like, dude, we've got to do something. He's like, I feel like I'm dying over here. I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. And it was him bringing it to my attention that made me realize, oh, wow. And come to find out, he wasn't the only one feeling that way, right? And so for him, it was like, hey, once a week, we'll have a quick phone call, right? And hopefully you have small enough teams, even if you work at a really large company, hopefully you have small enough teams where you can still make sure that you're recognizing that human touch that's oftentimes needed. Bathroom breaks are another thing that I can't even tell you. I don't know if any of you guys have like young kids at home, kids in diapers at home, or maybe not even kids in diapers, but this is something that my wife faces with remote school and all of those different things is, she needs to take a 15-minute, bathroom break, mental stretch, all of those types of things. But during her 15-minute break, we've got to change a poopy diaper, or, my son fell down and hurt himself and now he needs a Band-Aid, or, we come out and the kitchen is completely destroyed because the kids aren't doing their schoolwork. They're running amok of the entire house. And so the 15-minute break that I was planning on taking to go to the bathroom, refill my water bottle, all of that stuff, I used up 18 minutes just putting some sort of semblance of order back into my house. And now all of a sudden I'm feeling rushed and I'm feeling like I don't have time to even now go to the bathroom. So I guess in 2 more hours, I'll take another break, right? Those types of situations happen, and they happen a lot. They would happen more regularly than you might think. And so that's where I say, if your employees don't feel comfortable enough telling you, or if your team members don't feel comfortable enough telling you, hey, I need to just actually take like 30 minutes here, then again, I think we have a larger issue at play. I realize that work needs to get done, and sometimes work needs to be done on a specific time schedule, but very rarely is something absolutely crucial that it must be done this minute, right? And so those are the types of things that I say, if we know what those things are, if we allow slack in the other areas. Again, going back to that statistic where most people only have really truthfully 3 hours of productive work on an 8-hour shift, seems absolutely crazy for us to be, so strict on different time requirements and things of that nature, right? Now, again, I run a classroom. Our teachers run classroom settings, and we have lecture time, right? There is set aside time every single day where we say, yes, this needs to be done within this very specific window. But there's, the whole rest of the day to kind of take care of the other issues, and that's perfectly okay. So Kanban versus stand-up, I will call out, James specifically said he loves Kanban, working with it. Yeah, employees can really keep track of themselves. I will just specifically say that don't not do your stand-ups just because you do have a Kanban board, right? And if you're not familiar with stand-up, I think probably most of us are, because this is a tech conference, but making sure that you're having that regular, every single day, 15-minute meeting. Hey, what's going on? How's your work schedule doing? Do you have any roadblocks? Anything I can help you out with? Everything from okay, finish up right? Okay, good. We're good to go, right? And again, everyone kind of has their own little flavor of stand-up, and that's totally fine, unless, of course, you're out there and you're the Agile Manifesto. Yeah, I definitely think that, that once a day, 15-minute meeting, and you know what? That doesn't have to be cameras on. I found it that a lot of times it really doesn't need to be cameras on, and I still get perfectly fine participation. So we're good there. Scheduled deliveries was one other bullet point I specifically want to call out. Don't be the person who's sending messages. Just because you choose to work at 10:30 at night doesn't mean that other people want to work at 10:30 at night. So if you have a message and you're going to send it via Slack or Zoom, or probably not Zoom, I don't know how that platform would do it, but there's a million other messaging platforms out there, even email. where you can say, hey, please send this at 8 a.m. or send it at 9 a.m. or send it at 9:15 a.m. Because everyone starts work at 9. And so I want to give people 15 minutes to kind of, get their coffee cup filled, get their computer turned on, kind of get themselves into a work mindset and have that message delivered at that time. Those tools exist and they're pretty easy to use. And they're pretty much available for any type of platform that's out there. And so for the next slide, we'll kind of talk about use technology, right? Use the technology that exists. Use those platforms, use those tools that already are there. There's absolutely no reason to reinvent the wheel here, right? Being a software developer, I can definitely be guilty of this, it's like, oh, well, I could build Zoom. That's not too hard. I know how video sharing works. I could build that platform. We'll just do it and we'll slap all of our own logo and branding and everything around it. A lot of times it's highly unnecessary. For the most part, it's incredibly unnecessary. To put the company brand on every single thing, a lot of times is really just not needed. And having the very specific company tool, a lot of times it doesn't matter. Now there are some specific companies out there, maybe if you're working in healthcare or government or things of that nature, where yes, everything has to be ironclad, everything has to be completely locked down. No, we can't use Zoom, we can't use Google Chat. No, we can't use those things. In that circumstance, I completely understand. But where you can, try to use the tools that people are already familiar with and that everyone else is using. There's that concept of you have safety in numbers. If I can Google something to figure out a problem as opposed to having to specifically ask IT for support, I'm going to feel a lot better about myself. But if I'm constantly hounding IT, now IT's getting backed up, I'm getting backed up, everyone's getting frustrated, and work's not getting done. We're not pushing forward, and ultimately my workplace satisfaction is going down. And so I think it's important to use the different tools that already exist. I specifically want to call out Discord here. How many, and again, show of hands, everyone using Slack or Microsoft Teams probably, right? For workplace communication or something of that nature. And I think that's great, okay? Discord has a very fun kind of, a lot of times it appeals to a lot of gamers and things of that nature. Sorry, David, I'll get wrapped up here then. And Discord is just one of those platforms where you could say, hey, maybe we need to have work conversation happens on this chat platform and fun stuff happens over here. Because a lot of times I can't separate the concept of like general or random. But I can change my mindset for a completely different platform, and I can feel a lot better about that. I can feel better about the way that that's used. And a lot of times it's just a little bit of mental shift, right? I say highly encourage things like screen share. If someone's like, hey, how do I do this? If you can, just screen share and say, oh yeah, let me show you. I just do this, 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 and you're good to go. You got it? Okay, cool. Go take care of it, right? And so again, use the technology that's already there, use the technology that does exist, keep it simple. Let's see, be flexible, right? Changes here, more is coming. That's specifically what I think I started this out with. Even if you're that company that says, we can't possibly do that, I bet you probably could. I bet you could. And especially right now is the time to just try. People are very understanding right now. People are incredibly like, well, maybe that's what they used to do, but now they do this. And we're fine, right? Humans, we're very adaptable. We have to be. And those expectations of how things always were doesn't necessarily that means that that's how it will always be. I just got back actually late last night from Hawaii, which was a total blast, loved it. But things were different going to Hawaii, wearing a mask in all these different places, going through these shops and things of that nature. There was social distancing involved. There was, We did an excursion on a boat ride. Half the boat was full. And all of these things, again, here's a bingo buzzword. Maybe they're just the new norm, right? And that's totally fine. But what is normal anymore in today's world is, it doesn't matter. It's change. Change is what is normal, and change is what is expected. And so as you change, I would say, be willing to take that first step. Talk to your individuals, talk to your teammates, have that communication. If something's not working, be brave enough to say, hey, do you guys think this is working? Is this something we should continue with? Because I don't really know. I'm in uncharted territory here. And be okay with not having the answer to everything. And then trust the opinion of the people you already hired or the people that you're working with. I don't know if I have time for this story or not, but there's this concept of the World Fair, and I think it was back in like 1912 or something of that nature, but they pulled this, there was this thing where they said, I want to guess the weight of a steer. And they pulled a whole bunch of people randomly, and then they pulled like 10 professionals, 10, cattlemen or whatever, right? And the cattlemen all guessed the weight of the steer, and the closest guess of those 10 cattlemen was about 10 pounds off. And the guess of the vast population happened to fall within like a sixth of a pound for the weight of the steer. And the concept of that story really is to just say that sometimes, not always, but sometimes the opinion of the populace will absolutely be worth more than the opinion of the professional, right? And I specifically call that out because, again, people don't admit, when they're right here. Those quote unquote professionals in today's world right now with what's going on, how can you be a professional in a pandemic, right? Most likely you're not, but there's a lot of people who will feign confidence that they are. And so again, as we kind of just wrap this up, I just kind of have this last little slide here. Slow down, keep calm, be positive, be happy, smile, relax, go outside. Enjoy life. Ultimately, that's what all of us want, and that's what we're all shooting for. So appreciate you jumping into my presentation, and we'll kick it back over to the live stage. Thanks, everyone.